Hello everybody and welcome to the Fire from Ashes podcast, a podcast about faith, life and family from the very wise perspective of one 21-year-old Catholic guy. But I kind of realised as I was going along this journey that maybe I'm not as wise as I could be. So now we have the esteemably wise perspective of Deacon Stephen, who is the permanent deacon in the parish of St Margaret Mary's, New Moston, for the Ordinary of Our Lady of Walsingham. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Who are you, Stephen? Deacon Stephen, who are you?
Well, I'm a married man. I've been married 40 odd years. I have 2 daughters and I have 3 grandchildren. One 8, one 6 and one in heaven. Who died when he was only 11 days old. It's the first person I ever baptised. I baptised in hospital.
I'm so sorry.
So that's me. Happily married for 40 odd years to Janet. My professional life was as a teacher. I was teacher of religious studies in diocesan Catholic schools until my retirement. I took early retirement when I was 55. I thought it was time that I devoted myself to some more interesting things other than school life. And it also gives opportunities for younger people, anyway. You don't want a lot of old fogies hanging on forever and ever. So I still think I was as cool as ever, when I finished.
Why are you so cool? What cool hobbies? What does a cool deacon do?
Well, a cool deacon really is a deacon who realises what his job and function and role within the Christian community is. That's what a cool deacon is.
Okay.
An uncool deacon is one who thinks that he knows rather than the church. He knows what's the best way to do things.
The best way to be a deacon?
No.
But he doesn't know.
He doesn't. We follow the teaching of the church.
Okay, and I want to ask you about that, but before we get into that, I want to ask, why do you believe in God? What is that story, and when did that start? And it hasn't finished, praise God.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, when people talk about belief in God, and very often they say, they went through a difficult time, say in the teenage years when they didn't believe, and then they came back to the church and so on. Well, I've never had that experience at all.
You never were rebellious?
No, not at all. By the grace of God, never. I've never seriously doubted ever for a moment God's existence, and that God is the ultimate cause of everything of my life and everything that I've ever experienced. I've always thought that. I can never remember a time when I didn't think that God. I suppose I must have done, when I was 2, I probably didn't think like this. But you
didn't think the opposite when you were 2. You just
no.
What were you thinking about at that point?
When I was 2, no idea. Funny enough, I do have early memories. I can remember. I have early memories of church, before I went to school.
Really?
Oh yeah, I can remember.
So you would have been 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, so I can remember. It must have been about 3 or 4. It can't have been any more than that.
Was it this church that you first came to?
No, it was St John Bosco's, and it was before their present church now, which was opened in the early 1960s. I can actually remember it when what is now the church hall used to be the church.
Wow.
I can remember a silver monstrance and being absolutely bowled over with this beautiful shining silver monstrance.
So what you're saying is the only thing you've ever been interested in with the church is its wealth and glory, not joking.
Well, I was just bowled over by how lovely it was.
Yeah.
But then of course in the ordinary, one of the things which we do emphasise is the beauty of holiness.
Yeah, could you just explain what is the ordinary? Because I haven't actually explained it on this show. I'm a member of the ordinary. Steve's a member of the ordinary. What is the ordinary?
Well, the ordinary basically is Anglicans, members of the Church of England, petitioned the then Pope Benedict XVI. Could they come over into full communion with the Roman Catholic Church? And Benedict has to, or any Pope has to, respond to a request from anyone or any group who would make such a request to become full members of the Catholic Church. And so then it was hammered out how it could be actually done. How could Anglicans come over and what could they keep and so on? Because, of course, if you've been formed as an Anglican, if your first experience of God and prayer and fellowship and your ways of praying and all of those things which have gone to make you a Christian and have led you eventually
your formation
to full communion with the Catholic Church, you don't suddenly want to ditch all of those things and say, oh, it was all wrong and so on and so on. Those things that you were formed, those ways of praying, those particular kind of prayers and so on, are very important to you, as you say, because it's been part of your formation. And so the Anglicans said, well, can we bring some of our own traditions, our own ways of prayer, our own ways of celebrating the Eucharist into the Catholic Church? And Benedict said, not only can you, I would like you to bring those gifts with you into the church. And this is what we mean when we talk about an Anglican patrimony. Those things which belong especially to Anglicanism being brought into the Catholic Church and being a gift to the Catholic Church. And basically that's what the ordinariate is, completely and fully part of the Roman Catholic Church. It is a Roman Rite organisation. It's like a diocese, but doesn't have a territory. Dioceses have territories. Manchester, Salford, Lancaster and so on, wherever they are in the world, Minnesota or whatever. They're territorial, but the ordinary isn't territorial. It goes all over the country, a bit like the armed forces are an ordinary. The armed forces and the bishop for the armed forces is bishop over the whole of the armed forces, wherever they are geographically. And it's the same with the ordinariate. Our leader of the ordinariate, Monsignor Keith Newton, is the ordinary over not a geographical area, but wherever ordinary communities are based anywhere in the country.
So at the beginning, thank you for explaining, firstly.
I hope it was adequate.
No, it was very good. You talked about how within the ordinary, like beauty is an important part of drawing ourselves closer to God. And I want to ask a question, because I asked, why do you believe in God? And you said you never had a moment when you faltered, you always believed in God. But I wanted to ask, did beauty ever have a role of helping you to come closer to God or deepen your relationship with God? And how was the ordinariate? Because you joined the ordinariate maybe 4 years ago?
Yeah, 28. Well, not really, no. 12 months ago, really.
Okay.
Because
you've experienced it
for 4 years, yes.
And so, can you talk a little bit about that? Has that deepened your relationship with God? Has beauty had a big role in your life?
Oh, I think undoubtedly. It's very much the kind of thing which many of the saints, Bonaventure, of course, immediately comes to mind nowadays as the great exponent of God's beauty and the beauty of holiness. But I think it's something which is very basically Christian. St. Paul writes, of course, that if there is anything good, anything holy, anything that is beautiful, anything that is noble, all things go to praise God. And I think particularly in Western Europe, over the last 200 years or so, with the development of the Romantic movement, and there has been a much more definite move towards the beauty of God and God revealing himself in nature, and God revealing himself in music and in literature. Very often you will find when reading any spiritual book, there'll be references to the poets. So, people will often illustrate their books.
Wow.
People, whole sermons have been, and lessons have been done round, a particular great painting. And how people, the kind of response it evokes. We think, of course, the obvious one, Rembrandt. I think it's Rembrandt, isn't it? The Prodigal Son. But there's a whole series of paintings by Caravaggio, which are excellent catechetical tools for communicating the gospel message. And it's quite amazing if you put some of these Caravaggio pictures in front of a group and ask them about it, what they think it is. It's really often quite remarkable.
What will come out?
What will come out of it? I've even done it with 14-year-olds. And the first time I did it, I thought, this one, I thought it might be an idea. And I thought, well,
they're just going to be like, rubbish painting.
But I was blown away by their insight.
You judged the book by a cover.
Well, I did. I judged the picture by a grade. Yeah, so all those little
14-year-old kids.
Yeah.
They had deep spiritual insight.
They had. I was amazed at year 9s, So and it made me think of the psalm, out of the mouths of babes and sucklings that was found praise to foil thy enemies. Wow. So
yeah, I think that is very true. I think that one of the most obvious ones to me, not paintings but works of literature that has this reaction that calls us closer to God, is Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And Narnia as well.
Yeah.
And there's two things. They're not, Narnia is obviously a bit more explicitly Christian.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings has no kind of
no.
Tolkien wasn't like, I'm going to set out to do a work of evangelization. No. But he was so rooted in Christ that it just it just unfolded within his story.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
And I think that my personal opinion is that because beauty, like true beauty, is revealing the reality of who God is with the tools that we have around us.
Yeah.
And so if you actually make something genuinely beautiful, whether you're trying to be an evangelist or you're just trying to make something beautiful, it'll always point back to God.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely right,
Yeah. So you're a permanent deacon.
I am a permanent deacon, yes.
What is a permanent deacon?
Well, a permanent deacon is really, there's only one kind of deacon, really. You're just a deacon. But and every bishop, priest or deacon is a deacon. A priest doesn't stop.
So you're saying the Pope is a deacon?
Oh yes, most definitely is, yes.
Okay.
And in many celebrations, and certainly when Mass is celebrated, a bishop or the Pope, being the Bishop of Rome, because that's the reason he's the Pope, is because he's Bishop of Rome. Yeah. So a bishop will wear a dalmatic, which is the diaconal vestment. He will wear that under his chasuble to remind him always that he's always a deacon and never ceases.
Really sweaty.
I would imagine it would do. So I presume he must have lightweight ones.
Really thin.
Yeah.
Maybe would that really remind him? If it's so thin, he might not even.
Well, let's hopefully when he puts it on, he will say a prayer
back in the mindset
and remind himself.
I'm a servant here.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the so a permanent?
So a deacon. There is only one kind of deacon, which is a deacon, right? There isn't.
There's not a difference between
a permanent deacon and what we call a transitional deacon. A transitional deacon is a deacon who's only going to remain a deacon, usually for about 12 months. It's his final year of preparation for the priesthood.
I know one of those at the moment.
Right. So in his final year, after his studies of philosophy and theology and so on, in his final year, he will spend more time as it were, hands-on in a parish,
Yeah.
a transitional deacon prior to his ordination. So he spend a
So
year.
it's not just straight out of the seminary into
No,
the parish.
right.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the idea behind it. So he will. So for his last year of his 6-year period of preparation for the priesthood, in his last year, he will be ordained a deacon. But because the following year he's going to be ordained a priest, we refer to them as transitional deacons because they're passing over from being deacons to priests. I'm not a transitional deacon. I'm a permanent deacon. I will always be a deacon.
And so,
I will not be.
What are the duties that come with that?
So the duties of a deacon are the same. The duties of a deacon really are the service of God and his people. Obviously, the obvious thing to say about deacon, it comes from the Greek diakonos, which means servant. And so a deacon's role, depending on where he is, many deacons work, I think particularly in the States, many deacons have roles as prison chaplains and have roles as school chaplains.
You've not been sent down to strange ways yet, have you?
No, I haven't. I don't think that would be my particular charism.
That's
no.
not your charism.
No.
Okay.
And then working in schools and hospitals and in prisons and so on.
But what does your average week look like?
I'm sorry?
What is your average week?
Well, my average week is not like that. And of course, I don't think that is the essential part of being a deacon. A deacon proclaims the gospel at Mass and preaches. This is an essential part, I think, of being a deacon. Working in hospitals, very often you'll see on YouTube about deacons, and that deacons, unlike priests, deacons are meant to be working in hospitals and prisons, and they have a special charism of service to the marginalised and so on. Well, I simply don't think that's true. All Christians have that charism. All
definitely.
Christians are called to
the works of mercy.
To the works of mercy, the corporal works of mercy. And people often quote Acts chapter 6 to back this up, that they were to wait on tables. Well, that is true. It does say that's why Stephen, yeah, exactly, my namesake, Stephen and the first men were chosen as deacons to wait at tables. And so they think that, therefore,
you should just wait on tables.
And they've rather misunderstood it, because in the rest of the Acts of the Apostles, whenever we have the deacons, we never see them doing any of those things. What we do see is Stephen preaching and being put to death for his preaching. We see Philip baptizing the Ethiopian eunuch and explaining the scriptures. So it's a real stretch to say that the evidence from the Acts of the Apostles that deacons waited on tables, where whenever we see deacons in the Acts of the Apostles actually doing anything, they're baptizing, preaching the gospel to those who have not yet heard it.
And that's what you do.
And I see that primarily. I see primarily my role as assisting the priests at Mass, administering those sacraments which I'm allowed to administer, which are all of them except for, of course, I can't say Mass and forgive sins, and so I can't give the sacrament of the sick, because that includes the sacraments of
and you can't ordain other people.
Well, and of course, but only the bishop can do that, because he is
cool.
He has the coolness. He has
He's
the
pretty
fullness.
cool, isn't he?
Well, yes, there has to be a certain level of coolness for the for you to be able to confer.
So you think when they're picking the bishops, they're like, he's cool.
Well, I think I think that's the priority. I think that's the first thing. A level of coolness has to be.
Can he wear sunglasses, kind of thing? Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it's obviously can he wear sunglasses? Can he wear sunglasses and carry it off?
Yeah.
I mean, anyone can wear sunglasses, but some people can wear sunglasses. You think, yeah. Whereas some people wear sunglasses, you think, oh my goodness, why didn't you
take it off? Take them off.
Exactly.
Take them off. Yeah.
But so there's got to be a certain level of coolness.
I wonder if that's actually a conversation that they have, because image is everything really these days.
Well, he probably always has been. I don't think people often take seriously enough. St. Paul's, I become all things to all men. Well, yeah, to a certain extent, what Paul is saying, it's about image. You've got to adapt yourself
to your scenarios.
to your,
I will say, I think you are very good at that.
congregation.
I think you are very good at that. And
well, that's very kind. Thank you.